What's going on, guys? Cabana Greg here, and yes, I know, it's been a while. I'm not dead, I am here. Definitely not the ghost of Greg who's talking in front of a camera right now as he slowly disappears into the oblivion, never to be seen again. Ah, shit. But in all seriousness, I'm coming to you with another video, and this time it's for the 10 best games of 2017. I have a list of 10 games that I thoroughly enjoyed playing this year. If you see a game on the list and you're like, what the heck, this could have been on there instead. Well, I mean, this is just me we're talking about. And I want to make a little note, I don't own a Switch, so you won't be seeing Breath of the Wild, and you won't be seeing Mario Odyssey on the list. I'm sure they're great games, but I haven't played them. Okay, without further ado, guys, we have 10 games to go over, so that's a lot of stuff. Alright guys, let's get right into it. I just want to say also I will be making a top 5 most disappointing games from 2017, so look forward to that video in the next few weeks, but until then, enjoy the top 10 best games of 2017. And at the number 10 spot, we have Night in the Woods. This was an indie game that just kind of came out of nowhere early on in the year and surprised me start to finish. This is probably one of the best coming-of-age stories I've played in video games. The animation, the art style in general is just fantastic. The score, the soundtrack spans over 80 plus tracks, and each track is so unique and so beautiful. The developers managed to inject so much life into this game while also presenting you with new and exciting gameplay mechanics. Nothing ever feels boring, nothing ever feels the same. Each day is different when you wake up from your bed. There are side activities that are meaningful and contribute to the town's lore. Can tell the developers put a lot of thought and effort into every single aspect of the game. Very happy to have played it. You should too. That's my number 10. At number 9, we've got Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. So yes, it's a little low on the list, but it's not because it's a bad game by any means. It's still on the top 10 of the year. Lost Legacy is more of the same Uncharted, but that doesn't mean that's a bad thing at all. This time, we follow Chloe and Nadine, and I was so happy to get to play as Chloe because I missed her in 4, and oh, so happy that I got to play as Chloe in this game. Nadine was a really great villain, I thought, in Uncharted 4, and I was really happy to see her in this game alongside Chloe, and the two of them work so well together. Their banter is on point, even better sometimes than Nate and Sully's banter. The game has a wonderful story that's full of action, full of surprises, and it's, you know, it's not a full $60 Uncharted game, but it really does have so much to offer, from its lengthy single-player campaign into its pretty dense and substantial multiplayer components. The game is well worth $40, and it's just a great, well-made game. The villain this time around I still thought was better than Uncharted 1 and Uncharted 2's villain, and this one also manages to be bigger in scope in some spots than Uncharted 4. Uncharted: The Lost Legacy was a great game, and I was so happy to have played it this year. If you haven't picked it up already, please do. It's been on sale a few times, and I think it's well worth your money. Number 8, a little controversial. This is Destiny 2. I loved the first Destiny, whereas most people didn't really care about the game. I thought it was awesome. For all the reasons people hated it, I loved it. Destiny 2 manages to be even better than the first one. It improves on so many aspects. The progression system is way better. The way that you actually get your gear just makes more sense. There are so many quality of life changes to this game that make it stand out from the original and make it so much better. The story this time, well, there is a story. It's substantial, it's interesting enough, and you know what? I had fun with it. The multiplayer still remains fun and addicting if you're into that stuff, but there's still plenty of PvE content here for you to enjoy. Yes, you can say it's just more of the same Destiny, but they really did make a lot of changes this time around from every aspect, even fast traveling. So in my opinion, Destiny 2 is a huge improvement over the original. I think it's a great game in terms of its mechanics, and I think you should definitely pick it up and give it a second shot. Who knows, you might wind up liking it. Okay, number 7, we have Resident Evil 7, and no, I didn't plan that. It just kind of happened to be my number 7 pick. So Resident Evil, I played 5 and 6, and I really didn't give a shit about the series after that. And I really didn't expect much from 7, but I picked up 7 on a whim because I figured, it could be good. And God, this was such a terrifying, fun romp. I had such a good time playing this game. I haven't played a game quite like Resident Evil 7 in a very long time. It made me tense and uncomfortable from start to finish, and it was just a joy to play. The Baker family, they're pretty terrifying. The father will smash through walls and chase after you. The mom will just kind of like sprint towards you and unleash bugs. So it was really interesting that you had to approach each situation differently depending on which member of the Baker family that you were interacting with. You can tell that Resident Evil 7 took a lot of inspiration from PT and other horror games that have come out in the past few years, but they take pre-existing mechanics and they make it something really unique and really interesting, a lot of fun. So overall, I just had a really fun time with Resident Evil 7. I was scared out of my wits. I can't wait for the DLC. I think you guys should totally check out Resident Evil 7 because it is hopefully the start of a great trend of horror games for the Resident Evil franchise. Coming in at number 6, we have Nier Automata. Now, Nier Automata is a very interesting action RPG. It was developed by Platinum Games, so you know the action and the combat's gonna be super flashy and fun and crazy, and it is all of those things. But the story is also really interesting because you can play this game 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times and you won't even scratch the surface of its story. I think I played the game at least 4 or 5 times, and there were still pieces of this narrative being revealed to me every single time I played the game. I feel like most games could take a page from Nier Automata's book, in the sense that you can play it numerous times and still have a different experience each time you play the game. It has an ever-evolving story that always kept me on my toes and surprised me with its quirky characters, its crazy action set pieces, and this was just one of the biggest joys to play this year. Nier Automata is leaps and bounds way better than the first Nier from every perceivable aspect. Its gameplay, its story, its dreamlike soundtrack. Nier Automata is a very deep and rewarding RPG. The more you play it, the more interesting and the more complex things become. It's one of my favorite action RPGs that I've ever played. Cuphead's probably one of the best 2D platforming games I've ever played. When this came out, I was hoping it would be good, and it exceeded all my expectations. When I finally got my hands on the game, I was blown away. This is one of the most beautifully animated games I've ever played. The designers of this game animated every single thing, and it just looks so great. Not only does it look great, but it sounds great. The sound effects, the sound design, the soundtrack in general, all these things are incredible. Cuphead has so many compelling pieces that fit together and make for an entirely unique and enjoyable experience. Now, this is a game primarily focused on boss fights, and you know, that might sound like it get boring after a while. You know, after the 8th or 9th boss, you're like, okay, it's more of the same. But no, Cuphead has this magical ability to make each encounter, each boss fight so fun, so challenging, and so beautiful. Sometimes the animations that were going on screen for the bosses distracted me, and I wound up dying because I wasn't paying attention to what I was supposed to be doing. It's very, very, very clear that a lot of care, a lot of time, and a lot of love went into making this game, and I think that is why it is so special, and a lot of people really seem to appreciate it and really like playing it, myself included. So great soundtrack, great gameplay, and amazing animation. My number 5, I think you guys should check it out. It is truly a work of art. Number 4, we've got Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. This was, oh boy, I had been waiting so long, just like Cuphead, to play this game. Every single dev diary that was released from the studio, I would always watch. I was fascinated by how exactly this small team was making this game. I was so interested in what exactly this project would be, because originally it started as a full $60 game, but then the team scaled everything back, made it $30, and said it would be more like an indie game with a AAA skin. And that is the best way to, I guess, put this, because of the fact that the development team had only so many resources at their disposal, but that didn't take away from the overall quality of the game. In fact, these huge studios could learn so much from this game. What they have created is something that is so remarkable, and other studios should learn from Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. The sound design and the sound mixing is probably some of the best that I've ever experienced in a game, and it honestly makes you feel like you're losing your mind. I played this game with the lights off, and I honestly thought that people were in my room talking to me from all angles. It was really surreal, and it was really strange, but it worked so well to the game's benefit. Also, the developers managed to inject all of these unique gameplay mechanics that make each and every encounter in this game so stressful. There's one mechanic in particular where each time you lose a fight, Senua's sickness slowly spreads to her head, and eventually you'll have to restart the entire journey from the beginning. So every time you lose a fight, you kick yourself in the butt, because it means you're one step closer to resetting all of your progress that you've made. Senua's Sacrifice starts off pretty linear, and you think, oh, it's not really going to develop into much, but you would be dead wrong. This game just becomes something truly special, and it is a visceral experience, I think, is the best way to sum up this game. In all honesty, the sound design and the mocap performance are the biggest reasons why this is at my number 4, and the fact that, like, this has one of the best video game endings that I've ever seen. It's a really powerful ending, and I guess that could be said about the whole game. It's just very, very powerful and very, very special, and I think that's why it's at my number 4. Okay, number 3, we've got Wolfenstein DOS, the New Colossus. This game was just holy crazy fun to play. It manages to be better than the first Wolfenstein game, which I didn't even think was going to be good in the first place. Machine Games is such a talented studio, and Wolfenstein 2 just has everything in it. It's got guns, it's got blood, it's got a great story, it's got humor, it's a great first-person shooter. Probably one of the best first-person shooters I've played, just from a narrative standpoint. It's very powerful and very interesting. Wolfenstein, just start to finish, just non-stop action, and I couldn't put my controller down. It was just such a blast to play, and I can't wait to see where the series goes. I think that there are a lot of wacky, zany moments, which seems like the Wolfenstein series is kind of known for at this point, but they all work, and it's just a lot of fun in general. I loved the flashbacks to Blazkowicz's childhood. I think that those moments in particular just stood out to me, and I just found them to be really special and really interesting. So if you're looking for non-stop thrills and a pretty damn good story, Wolfenstein 2 is definitely your game, and that's why it's at my number 3. Okay, number 2, I did a whole review about this game. It's What Remains of Edith Finch. This is one of the greatest video game experiences I've ever had. Giant Sparrow is an incredibly talented team, and with What Remains of Edith Finch, you think you're not going to get much from the game because it's a very, very linear game where you just proceed from point A to point B until something happens, and then you keep going down this like rabbit hole, and it's a walking simulator. And people have these stigmas about walking simulators. They're like, it's just whatever. This game manages to throw so many different mechanics at you while subtly telling this story about these kind of tragic deaths in this one girl's family. The way that it handles death is probably the most unique in all video games. This game as a whole, start to finish, was just very well realized, and I think that the studio, they had a lot to work with when handling something as devastating as death, but they managed to inject so much life into this story, and I didn't see that coming at all. Also, the overall design of the Finch's house is incredibly unique. I really love how each family member has carved out their own little space in the home, and you can kind of just see what influences them, what inspires them. What Remains of Edith Finch it's a beautiful game. The developers managed to just throw new and exciting mechanics at you, even when you're like 3-4 hours in. It's never dull. It's always interesting. It's always artful and poetic, and I think that it's a really, really touching experience. So What Remains of Edith Finch is my number 2. I think it's an extraordinary game. People give it a lot of shit because it is a walking simulator, but it is truly a work of art, and I think that the developers put a lot of time and care into crafting this very tightly woven narrative. So that is why What Remains of Edith Finch is my number 2. Okay, number 1, we have Horizon Zero Dawn. This game is extraordinary. I didn't expect to enjoy Horizon as much as I did. I loved the main character. I thought Aloy was an incredibly well-crafted, well-spoken female lead. I absolutely loved her as a character. The open world is beautifully designed and so different that I just couldn't help but exploring some places for hours just because of how fascinated I was by it all. The robotic dinosaurs, I know that's not what the developers don't want you to say, but they are robotic dinosaurs. They are really well designed, and the way that you have to fight them and combat them is just really gratifying, as you just kind of have to shoot their parts down, and when you can use their parts against them even. So it's like it's very rewarding to fight these creatures, and it's very fun to fight these creatures. I didn't expect much from the story either. I just thought it was going to be an open world game with a story, because we've been getting a lot of open world games this year, so I figured nothing new there. The story took me by surprise so many times, and I thought it was was one of the best game stories this year. It was just so well written. There's a great twist that really makes you think, and I was so on board for the last like hour and a half of the game because there was a lot happening, but it never manages to lose momentum. So in addition to a great lead, a great female character, great open world, a great story, the soundtrack is incredible, the art direction is stunning, and the DLC for the game was actually really good too. So there's just so much working towards Horizon Zero Dawn. It is one of the best open world games I've played. It's got some of the best art direction in games, and the story is so surprisingly good. Take a lot of inspiration from games like The Witcher and other open world games, but it manages to have its own identity at the same time. Horizon Zero Dawn is my favorite game that I've played this year. I think it's wonderful. Somehow you should just be able to play it. It's a great game, and I'm so happy that it was released this year.